Welcome to the Roho Rest Hour, where we slow down, breathe deep, and give ourselves permission to rest. It's Chloe and Michelle here, your guides to all things rest. So grab a cozy spot, let go of the hustle, and let's embrace the flow. It's time to rest. Hey everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of Roho Rest Hour. I am Michelle, and I am so happy and excited to be here today with my amazing partner and rest co-host,
Chloe Fulton.
And Chloe. Together, we're diving into all things rest, what it means, why it matters, and how it can actually transform our lives. This podcast is kind of like our love letter to slowing down, recharging, and finding joy in the pauses. Whether you are a go-getter, you're out there grinding and hustling, you're a dreamer, or someone just trying to make it through this day. Oh, I'm sorry. This is your invitation to rest with intention and without guilt and without shame. So rest isn't just about taking a break. This is about sleep or taking a break. It's about reclaiming our time and our energy and our sense of self. It is odd that we have to sell it like this, but that is our relationship to rest and how we've learned to understand it. But it's about creating space to breathe and to dream and just be. And here's the thing. Rest is not revolutionary. It is not radical. It is, but it's not. And it's not about resistance. It's necessity. It's how we show up as our best selves for the people we love, the work we do, and the world that we live in. Is it just me? Do y'all see all this stuff that's happening? We need some rest. So whether you're here to explore the science of it and all of these nuances of rest, the art of slowing down, what that looks like and what that means, or just trying to feel a little less alone in your journey, we're just glad that you're here. And one more thing I'll add a little bit about Chloe and I and this concept and conversation about rest is that for us, it's not just about a business, or it's not just random conversations. This is a movement. We are really out to cause a movement and shake some things up about people being able to truly understand the power and the need for rest and centering that more in your day-to-day experience as a necessity. And so, it's a rest. It's about power, and it's about personal power. And it's a way to push back against the hustle and grind culture, right? This culture that says, hey, there's something noble or badass about exhaustion.
Keep going and keep going.
Yes. Keep going and keep going. And so we're here to say, stop, breathe, and let's get realigned. So in the spirit of that, I am super excited. Chloe, did you want to add anything at this point before we hop into questions?
I just know that this is needed for all of us in one way or another. We all have our own journeys to being exhausted, to even being so exhausted that you don't even recognize how exhausted you are. So there are many different pathways and journeys to that. And I'm just really excited that we can think of collective ways to increase how we can rest, how we understand rest, and what that actually means.
Absolutely. Well, because people are not familiar with us yet, you will be very, 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 very soon a lot more familiar with us. But because you may not be at this point, Chloe, do you want to open this up and talk a little bit about your rest journey and what your lack of rest or rest journey? What's your situation? How are you positioned in this conversation? What has it been like?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting to be here right now. And yes, to think all the way back. And you can go back a couple days, you can go back through life. And what I know about myself is I've always made myself available for other people. And so from a very young age, I can think about how tiring that was, but I didn't have enough awareness to know what that was. And that has continued throughout my life. I love being there for people, but not taking the time to pause to rest, to become more in alignment with your purpose in the now and going forward, you get worn out, you get exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought that into some other challenges in life, like a very long infertility journey that again tired my body out, tired my spirit out. And then was blessed with two beautiful children, but my daughter came at a very early stage, and we were in the hospital for 5 months. And you can imagine the day-to-day life of NICU. A day is enough to feel tired. And so we came home from that, and I expected to maybe have a breath, at that point. And then we went bam right into the pandemic. And so coming out of that, us people that most of us are caregivers in some way or another, but the ones that, have extra of that in their life, I know a lot of us came through that period of time and just had no clue how worn out we would be, how tired we would be. So it took all of that, the compounding of all of that, and coming out of the process of giving my body to this fertility journey, to these pregnancies, to this NICU journey, to the creation of nourishment for my children. And once I stepped back from making milk, giving of my body in that way, I was like, dang, y'all, I am tired. Like I didn't have time to stop and think how tired I was. And so there are these moments in life, I think, where we do take the pause finally, and wow, there is some real need for new tools and how to best be our best selves, but also best learn how to rest and what that means as individuals.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And as someone who witnessed that journey, I'm still like, how did you get? But there's something about women that we just figure it out. I don't, I look at my girlfriends who are married or, in partnership, and in particular partnership with men. And it's the just assumption that, well, you'll figure it out. Like we don't have the luxury to just we don't have the luxury to say, I can't, I know everybody in the house is sick. I'm sick too, but guess what? Somebody's got to. And it's the expectation, right? Is when we're going to do that. So then when you imagine the pandemic, and that's just, it was a lot. So, and I have 2 dogs. So, and for me, I'm like, oh, there's so much work. And,
they are, those dogs are working.
Yeah. My dogs are a whole bunch, but, part of it is a owner operator error too, where there's a saying where if you treat your dogs like humans, they treat you like a dog. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of true. They're like, where's my food? Yeah, that's my dogs. That's a whole other podcast. But the realities are your caregiving, right? It's caregiving and management. So, my story it's different, obviously, because, children are a whole other kind of like, I won't call them stressors, but a whole kind of, thing to carry. Right. And for me, I was doing pretty well. So I started out as a DEI consultant. About 2 years ago, I saw the writing on the wall, like, this DEI thing is spinning into something that I'm not sure is something that I know that I can be the facilitator of this conversation. But it just started to be weaponized. It just became a thing. I saw it coming, and I had issues with the DEI framework and how it was rolled out. Or how it was going down. So I changed and said, hey, I'm a difficult conversation strategist. I'm not a DEI consultant. And I actually started posting on my website, here are the problems with DEI as the industrial complex of it, right? Well, new administration comes in, thought I had a little bit more time to make some transitions. And within 4 days of an announcement that, hey, we're not doing DEI anymore, I lost 8 out of 9 of my clients in 4 days. Even though I had started changing, like, no, I'm not that, I'm this, it's still, no, you're talking about race and difference and identity. So same bucket. The immediate was like, oh my God, no, 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 no. I cannot lose all these clients. Like, I can't afford it. Like, what am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. But the period of time immediately following, when all of a sudden my calendar was just clear, and I was like, oh, huh, like, taking a little nap, get a little rest. And then all of a sudden it was like, I am exhausted. I felt like more tired. And I was explaining it to somebody that's like, you know how you have you're just marching along and there's people marching behind you, and when you stop it's like right, like everything just like knocked me down. I did not know I was that tired.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. So when I started to rest, I got present. And during the same time, I'm caregiving for my mom and, supporting her around her brain health. And then now I'm like getting this brain fog and I'm exhausted. And people are like, oh, it's menopause. Don't worry about it. Oh, it's the. When I slowed down, I was able to start pulling the threads apart of like, oh, that's a wound. Huh, I didn't know that was in there because I was too busy going. Oh, I didn't. So I have recently, so this all just happened in January, right? And so part of the creation and the drive and the motivation for me is about slowing down enough to see what you're doing to your body, to see what your body is trying to tell you, to rethink and retool. Like right now, I am on a mission to live my life through the lens of rest. And I'm grace. I'm about grace and great. That's my ultimate grace is rest. And so the time that I've had just to, it has felt worse because now I'm present to all the things that I wasn't present to and that I got to avoid by grinding. And now it kind of sucks, but I'm working through and my body is feeling like I'm honoring whatever. Hey, lay down. Okay, I'm going to lay down. If there's nothing on my calendar, I'm going to lay down. So for me, it's about reframing and changing how I move in the world and my relationship to know, my relationship to what people, people feel disappointed when I can't show up for them.
And so it is really about being unapologetic for what you need, because I know that that's always what prevents me. It's like, well, I know I'm tired, but so are all these other people. So I need to make sure that they're cool, and then I'll rest. And does that ever happen? It's like
Right.
putting the oxygen mask for yourself. How are you going to help everyone around you if
Yeah.
you're passed out? So you finding these ways, pausing to find the ways to how best to do that for yourself, and then you can actually do all those things that really need to be done.
Right. And I just, there's a reprogram and a rewiring that needs to happen, especially, for women, because I know that, there are some women listening like, here's all the thousands of things I have to do. You tell me where I'm supposed to rest, right? And I think that is because we're watching it, we're trying to assess it in the frame of it's our job to do it all. And so if you're not even thinking that, wait a minute, I can't care. It's not my job to be a superhero, especially one that doesn't need every superhero at some point in the movie has a point where they need to get past their kryptonite or they need to figure out. But if we're constantly thinking of being superhero, we're never thinking about the kryptonite and how to save ourselves and how to be the best superhero, right?
Well, it's interesting too when you think about patterns. I mean, you were kind of touching upon, you know that you've done something in a certain way that has obviously not brought in the rest that you need. And so how do you shift those patterns? But I totally just lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
I'll take it from here. How do you shift the patterns so that you're able to, first one, you can't, if you don't even understand that the pattern is there first, right? And then we get to shifting the pattern. But before you think about shifting, you have to be able to make the decision that this is about you. And we don't want to do things that are just for us. Or maybe we do, but where do I fit myself in? Where do I fit myself?
Yes. And that's what the pattern you can look at, the new pattern, the brand new pattern you can create is scheduling And I say it to myself all the time. How many things do I schedule in a day that are absolutely necessary to be done? I have to bring the kids to school at a certain time. I need to pick them up at a certain time, So why is it so difficult for us to schedule in that pause and that rest? And what is it about the conditioning in our society and our different cultural experiences and just being those caregivers, being women, that give us the knowing that we can't schedule that in with everything else. And we talked a little bit before about the difference in, this whole self-care thing is super important, but it's almost like that has to be its own thing. That has to be a special, unique thing. And there's this whole movement around like how precious that is. And I don't disagree with that. It is, but that shouldn't be what us time is. That shouldn't be rest time. That shouldn't be necessarily that should be all those other fun things that enrich your life and bring you joy. It's not one or the other. This is necessity. Rest, taking a pause, rejuvenating yourself is a necessity to keep going. It is how you have a great life, and it doesn't need to be looked at as a luxury.
Yeah. And the conflation of, when I think of self-care, I think of a spa, right? I think of going somewhere, booking an appointment, all of that. But what I'm learning is that self-care is like, I don't know, the word no. That's self-care. And we do have to make some tough decisions because everything feels urgent and important. I had a friend call me today whose mother is in an adult family home, and she's in California. And so she's trying to make sure that her mother's able to go to this particular appointment so that her benefits and stuff are square and she's good and she can be able to pay and be eligible for the adult home. So this is something that's critical. If she doesn't have this adult, where's she going to stay? Right. And so she's in California and called me and said, hey, could you go and do this thing and pick up my mom and then take her to an appointment and then bring her back? And everything in me was like, and this particular mother is like an elder in our community here. There's no way I'm not going to do it. There's no way. And I looked and I was like, I got to take my own mom to, so I'm trying to figure out how to do it all. Maybe if I'll pick them both up together and we ride. I can't do it. I can't. And I'm like, how's this going to work? And it wasn't until I thought, wait a minute, I have resources. Let me call some people. And, I called someone and they were like, let me check my schedule. If it is humanly possible, I'm there. With just because there are some people who it is your pleasure and honor to serve in that way because of who they are and the deference that you have for them. Right. And all I was thinking about was logistics. Right. And so this is a person who actually, that's their love language. So they were more than happy to be like, yeah, I'll do it. Let me just check my schedule. And if I can't, let me see who can. So now I have people on the ground trying to figure it out.
And that itself, Michelle, is, like you said, that's a version of you claiming rest. That's claiming pause, knowing, hey, I can't do all of this, but this is what I can do, and I will do it. And that brings, forward that positive intention, and it still gives you that peace of knowing that you're not overextending, that you took that moment for what you need to do.
Yes. Well, and what you're bringing up kind of brings up the subject of partnership, right? Thinking through and thinking about all of this rest stuff. I think the rest conversation, sometimes you just got to take your rest, but ideally it's nice when you can go to your partner and say, I am going to start centering rest. And here's how I need you to support me in that. Either it could be do this, and this to help, or it could be don't bother me when I'm doing X, or I'm going to need to allocate these financial resources towards this thing because it's what we're not asking for any of that. I mean, it's not typical, it seems, and I shouldn't say that, I don't know everybody, but it just seems like as many, in particular, women are burned out, in particular, Black women are burned out. There's a lot of people not asking for help. There's a lot of us not, because it's all
Not
it's cool.
natural. It's not a natural knowing for many of us. Yes.
But the irony is, I think when you look at the framework and the how we set up families, it's like, on one hand, we're not asking for help, but our role demands so many things that you need the help,
Yeah.
right? It's obvious. And so in one of the meditations, oh y'all, we got some meditations coming, they're really exciting. But in one of the meditations, it made me think about um the absolute it's almost like, do we feel guilty about asking for help? Do we feel shameful? I mean, what is it?
We're
What
taught
is?
to keep going. We're taught to suck it up. And especially, as you said, as women, and especially as women of color and Black women,
Mhm.
it is taught from the beginning that
Yep.
that's that's what we come
Mhm.
from. That's what we will continue to bring. But it's also reclaiming that power in a completely different way by saying, no, I am all of that and more.
Mhm.
And the way that I can continue to ascend in that knowing and bring forth all that energy of what was is to pause and do better and
Yeah.
be. You can only do that by listening to what you really need.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier in the intro that, this is not just a business or a podcast or something. This is a movement. Like, we are very passionately clear, excited, but also concerned about the future of women if we do not figure this thing out. And what are your thoughts about the vision? Like, the big why. When you talk about the big why for you on this grand scale, what do you see as the ultimate why for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, in addition, obviously, to the story I told you about how I got to this place of knowing how tired I was, I'm really witnessing that around me. There isn't a woman in my life or person in my life, for that matter, that isn't feeling some sort of collective heavy tiredness. And that's coming from a million different places and reasons, but I know everyone that I speak to, everyone I'm around, there seems to be this common thread of this need for pause and reflection. And it's how we're going to gain the resources internally and the power internally to keep going in this world that, yeah, there's a lot of questions right now. And it is very heavy on top of all of our individual circumstances. And so I know that I'm needing this. I know that there are so many others around us needing this, and I see this as a collective effort in finding what that means for us individually, but celebrating that together, whatever that may be. There isn't one right way. We don't know, necessarily what the perfect way is for the person next to us, but we can collectively hold space for that
Yeah.
and know that we can vibe off each other's ideas and
Mhm.
experiences, strengths and weaknesses to rise up together and understand how best we can collectively move into future from a more grounded and secure and safe and rested place.
Mhm, mhm. And as you were talking, it made me think of what my ultimate vision is, and plus, um, everything that you said, adding on to, I'll say it this way: once we deal with the fatigue, what is left after we've dealt with the tired and the fatigue, and we start to regain some energy or some clarity or some direction or focus, we're left with, like, oh, this was what my dream was. Oh, this is what I would love to do. Oh, yeah, I have been talking about writing a book or doing. So I would love for Roho Rest to not only be a place for us to rest, but now we're together and we're becoming well. And now we got ideas flowing. Okay, Chloe, what you doing? Well, I'm doing this. Well, who's doing that? Like a community of And I am just very curious to see how well rested women do it.
That's right. Because we do it well without, right?
Look how we do with no rest, right? I am very interested to see what happens when we figure rest out and what it really means. And that we stop putting it in these hyperbolic, supernatural,
I wish we could. We can.
We can, because guess what? Just like I was trying to figure out how to help my girlfriend get to help her mama. I have that same resourcefulness and ingenuity and creativity to be able to come up with, how can I live my life with rest where I show up to everything well rested? And I'm realizing that just may mean, I don't know, I may need 12 hours of sleep a night for a minute. I got to rearrange my life. Now, I do enough on this thing right here where I'm sure I can find an extra couple of hours right? I do enough on my computer where the rabbit holes of it all, where, you look at one thing, you're like, oh my God, it's been 45 minutes. I've been looking at this thing or that thing.
Yeah. And it shows even you can take 10 minutes. It can be just 10 minutes to start with. And you just sit, you don't have anything in front of you, or you lay down for a moment and just breathe. That can do wonders. And to just giving yourself permission to just take that little bit of time. Like you said, I definitely spend 20, 30 minutes on my phone a day. Are you kidding me? So
yes.
I can't sit in meditation, which again, we're going to have some beautiful ones, or sit with affirmation, or just, the stillness, quietness. And I know as a mother, quiet is rare, but I have to also, as a mother, teach my children that it's a necessity, that being a caregiver, being a woman, being a human, you are the one to give yourself that permission to take a pause and regroup, and therefore do your best.
And as we have more podcasts coming down, coming down the pike here, the rest just to be well is one thing, but then there's situations of life, like that big breakup where now you need more rest just to get to zero, just get to baseline, right? And so we'll talk more about, okay, so how is this relationship situation affecting your rest? We got to come back in, because there should be nothing that robs us of our rest, because the worse things get, the more rest we need, right? But we tend to be like, I don't have time. Look how bad things are. Right? Yeah, it's not great, So another thing too is that when you have a community of people, especially, during this time, a lot of people are just flat out just horrified and afraid.
Yeah.
And if we don't have a way to be like, name that fear in a way that we're not here, we need to vent about it and say, oh, this sucks, it's horrible, blah, blah, blah. But if we don't have a way to acknowledge our fear, our depression, our anxiety, all of those things that have us just not functioning well, right? Where are we going to do that? And, I highly recommend therapy for folks. I have a therapist that I depend on, very regularly. And that is 2 hours a month, every other week. Even if I did it 4 times, did it 4 times a month, did it every week, that's still 4 hours a week. So it's up to me to figure out the rest of it, because the 4 hours kind of give me it's like the locker room. That's a minute, but you got to go out there and run up and down the court. And when you get we have to figure this out. And
really, when you get to that empowered place of just the getting through and the rising above, even when the more challenges may come in, you already have that knowing of your ability, that you will do something, you will get through something. And so you can navigate with new tools, and knowing that it is going to be about the evolution of new tools, new circumstances, new situations. But if you go into it knowing that you have that power to find those tools, you're going to you're going to be able to.
Absolutely. Anything else, Chloe, that you want to share with folks about this rest situation? This is our first podcast. Really exciting. Anything else?
So happy to be here, and this is going to be a really amazing experience that I'm really excited to keep growing and building the foundation of, and seeing how we can collectively come together and make realness happen, real rest happen.
Absolutely. Well, I agree to all of that. I am so super excited to kind of be on this journey, but I'm really excited to be on this journey with you. And my prayer for both of us is that we step into this thing, even despite all of our own, like, I don't have time for this. I want this to be a way that we lean into our own rest, because while we talk about it here, there's still the reprogramming that needs to happen in our instincts to be like, oh, I got it. Oh, wait, nope. I don't do that anymore. That's the old program. Let me check in and see if I do have it, what my capacity, and be honest and truthful to myself. Right. So yeah. Thank you everyone for listening, Chloe.
Thank you, Michelle.
We got a lot. We got a lot to do here in changing minds and hearts of women. But on behalf of Chloe and myself, I just say thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time, and get rested.
Get rested, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, we certainly hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please do all the things you know to do on the socials. Like, subscribe, come back and join us. But above all, get rested.